I've done mentorships in the past and honestly been too afraid to make big changes. How do I take full advantage of new opportunities? Yeah, so this is important because our own human psychology, you'll get this with your patients as well. They may have gone to see other practitioners or whatever, and it didn't work for whatever reason. And sometimes you'll have somebody who's actually really self aware and will say something like this, like, yeah, I've seen this naturopath or I've seen another herbalist or whatever it is, and I was actually too afraid to implement what they told me. And that's a rare person who's actually that self-aware to admit that stuff, but that's an awesome place to start because now you can have this really, really honest conversation, right? That's going to come down to something very real, which is sometimes we think we want something, but there's conflict inside because our subconscious is scared. And I've mentioned this a bunch. I talk about it a lot. I've talked about it in Modern Vitality. I've found it's very helpful to train people on this, especially when they're coming for healing. Is like, look, your life as you've got it right now organized. This is for if they have a chronic issue, right? But your life is organized around this illness. Everything. You've got all these systems around you, depending on like who's taking care of you, what kinds of things you say no to now. Oh, I don't go out to dinner or what, whatever it is. Like all this stuff has happened. It's kind of congealed and you've built a routine and a rhythm and a structure that accommodates that you don't feel good. And if you start feeling better, all those things are going to have to be re-examined, which includes the benefits you were getting from those things, right? So one of my favorite examples is like somebody with fibromyalgia and they get the pain flares, and it's like, oh, I'm here for the help with the fibromyalgia. That's what I want. Okay. And you start finding things out. I had to learn this the hard way at first, but it was like, why aren't you taking the herbs? Why are you self-sabotaging my program? Well, when you dig, it's because actually they don't want to feel better all the way. Right. And there's both. They have conflict. They want to feel better, but if they feel better, that means no more pain flares. No more pain flares means no more special quality time with their husband who would only come rub her feet because she was feeling so sick. Otherwise, he was ignoring her. Right. So now you get this weird thing where you're getting this coupling of I have these bad symptoms, pain flares. It's coupled with positive attention, connection, and love. Now here you come with your herbs or your plan or your acupuncture or whatever you're doing to like help the symptom, but also what that means is that was the source of their connection and love with their partner. So now whether you know it or not, you're now wedged in there. I had to learn all this stuff, right? So how that works is you pre-frame this. You have the conversations. You go, look, you're probably getting something out of this. Your subconscious is scared to change because there's something in the routine that you actually like. Let's find the bright side now and make sure that if you do get better, that you can keep that in a different capacity. Right. So if your husband comes and rubs your feet because you feel so bad, talk to him about it. Say, listen, I'm going to work with this person who clearly knows what the fuck they're doing, and I'm excited because I think I'm going to get better, but I'm also a little bit afraid because I think I'm going to get better. What are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid that we won't have this time because it's kind of all orbiting the fact that I'm sick, and you spend time with. Oh, geez, I didn't know you felt that way. Yeah, well, we're going to make an effort to make sure that we don't lose our connection, right? Holy shit, you're healing a whole relationship, right? But that's because people are scared about the future that they even think they want. You got to understand this stuff. There's so much in the personal cultivation trainings. For those of you that are annual members and you've been through that, I get a lot of feedback that it's worth going through a second, third time because this stuff is so deep. And you're going to see it with the people you work with. But you're also seeing it with yourself. Oh, I want to up level. I want to upskill. I want to do this next thing, right? I do a mentorship and I'm too afraid to make the big changes. Okay, well, what's the conflict? Right? One part of you wants this. Is kind of this part of you is ambitious or wants to grow into the next phase of your development, or just knows there's more people they can help, or wants to be able to make more money so you can take care of your family, or you can go on vacations, or you can take care of yourself, or whatever. There's a lot of good reasons, right? But then there's also good reasons to not grow and stay stuck. I'm scared. What if I fail? What if it doesn't work? All kinds of things. These are objections. Right? Subconscious objections. And we'll find all kinds of reasons to drag our feet, which is why I give it two things for this. We've got a whole personal cultivation section in the program for this very reason, so that you can go through your own subconscious thought processes, bring that shit up to the light, and take what was hidden and make it visible so you can do something about it. And you can do something about it in a way where you don't fight your own subconscious, where you don't expect yourself to change and grow and be a better version of yourself. Instead, you can accept yourself how you are and feed your subconscious what it's asking for in non-destructive ways. All right, pretty cool. So there's that. It's called subconscious jujitsu. That's the whole strategy there. There's one, right? Number two is I've had to realize very early on, I'm going to be extremely candid here, but a lot of the shit that I'm doing with the profession is many steps beyond where most people are. especially if you look at kind of the end game here, which not everybody has to do this, but it's like if you want, you can have a totally online business, no brick and mortar, no time commitments, no virtual telehealth appointments, no appointments, totally clean calendar, not tied to any geographical location. You can travel, whatever. You got money coming in, people are getting better, and you've got systems set up. You're not detached from it. You're still engaged with your community. You got your fingers on their pulse. You can care. You can know who they are. You can have strong connections with people all over the world, but there's no limitations on you whatsoever to deliver that. That's pretty cool, right? To go from like, hey, I just graduated school and I'm trying to rent a room or be an employee to like doing that, there's a lot of steps. So what I've done is I've broken it down. In order to, I'm going to try not to go too long on this one. In order to achieve these things, there are sub steps in between, right? Like to have a strong online business, you've got to have your for like attraction, conversion, selling, and your program, right? You got to be able to do all that stuff. There's skills required. There's stuff you have to know. There are very specific pieces of information you've got to know about how to structure all these things so that it flows, right? You don't just go from zero to having all that. You got to take it in phases. So one of the big questions people get is like, oh, what's my niche? What should my niche be? I don't know what your niche should be, right? And maybe you don't either, but what we can do is find out ways to determine that. And so you put some messaging out towards a specific niche, and if you get a response from that, then you get some feedback. You can check a box and go, okay, I think there's viability here, right? We're looking for checking the box on every single sub step, because there's lots of ways to go about kind of creating yourself a big fucking to-do list about this stuff. Like, okay, I've got to build a website. I've got to make a program. I've got to get some videos for YouTube, or like write Instagram posts or whatever, all this stuff. You organize this in a way. I've got a video, it's called Quick Start video in the program. For when you join, it's one of the first things I recommend most people watch, because it's a very punchy overview of like, here's what we're going to be doing depending on your goals, right? If you want an online thing, here it is. If you want an online thing with a hybrid, you're going to use some of that same information. If you want to get your brick and mortar better, go to Brick and Mortar Magic, start there. But every single thing you invest your energy in here within our program, we have a very quick feedback cycle where we find out if it's valid or worth it. So there's smaller steps. It's not like standing on a diving board and trying to jump into a pool in the deep end and just being scared shitless and being like, I don't know. It's a lot of smaller steps. And each time you get actual real validation from the people you're trying to work with. So we look at things. It's not like you're just going to start saying, hey, I do Eastern medicine for X, Y, and Z problem, and people just throw $5,000 or $10,000 at you and you go, wow, it worked, right? We don't want to put all that pressure on this. We want to find all these little steps where you can get feedback as you go. So we start to find out, is this a viable niche? Can you get people in your group? When people come in your group, are they asking questions? Are the questions they're asking helping you figure out what should go in your program? Are you building the program? When you have a program ready or close to ready, is there interest, right? All these kinds of things so that you're not wasting your time. And maybe more importantly for this question, you're not wasting your bravery. Right? Because it's like, yeah, you can spend a lot of time, but also there's a little bit of like the vulnerability of going, oh, I'm going to do something. This is new. Oh, I'm scared. This is new. Well, you invest a little bit of bravery in a new action. Not a lot in a crazy bold thing. It's not a whole overhaul. You don't have to add like 6 more treatment rooms to your practice and have some sales script and where you're just hard selling everybody into something. It's not that. You don't have to do all these big things. You can do little things, but each time you do them, it takes a little bit of bravery, and then you get some feedback. And I'll tell you, it's a cycle, right? The more we do a little bit of brave things and then it works out, the braver we get for the next one and the next one and the next one. And that's how you do this shit, right? So there's that. And then combine that now where you've got a supportive group of colleagues and peers who are also on the same path, who understand, who get it, who will take you aside and have an hour-long conversation with you on the phone or FaceTime or whatever. We call them damn good conversations. There's so much support here. You'd have to work really hard to not succeed, right? You'd have to really, really work hard to not get your goals, and we make it as easy as possible. But that said, there is still work involved. You gotta show up and you gotta do it. Where there's a will, we have a way, but you gotta bring your will. So at the end of the day, you gotta figure out what motivates you. What are you trying to get? What do you want your life to look like professionally, personally? Do you want to have a practice that's sustainable for a long time? Do you want to have a brick and mortar? Do you want to keep that and do an online thing, right? Having that kind of hybrid situation. Do you want to have hybrid programs in your office where you got brick and mortar people coming in and they're signing up for programs? There's so much stuff that you can be doing, right? But beyond that, like, How does that feel? Does that fuel you? Does that make you want to move forward? Does that excite you? You know, does that help you feel like there's less probability of burnout? Does it keep you inspired? Those are the things we got to follow what's true, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, I did this whole thing and I didn't take any action. Well, because, you know, what you thought you wanted turned out it wasn't what you wanted. You know, if it's a course on how to build a huge busy mega clinic, and no offense to the busy mega clinics, like I'm a fan when it fits, obviously, you know, but for a lot of folks, we think that's what we want. And then we go try to learn how to do that. And it turns out that's how we find out that wasn't even aligned to our values or principles in the first place, right? And it's like, okay, well, I didn't take action in that case because it wasn't aligned. You know, that's a little different than being afraid of growth. So we have a growth environment, and we're so flexible here in terms of your choose your own adventure and what you want to get out of this ecosystem, that there's going to be something that lines up no matter where you are, no matter where you're headed. That's so far proven true. All right, hope that helps. Get to work.